We've identified that many students in Oakland experience racially disproportionate discipline, lack access to care, are victims of or at times perpetrators of violence, and all of which have a significant impact on their capacity to graduate from high school. And in looking at the data around, in three areas, reading scores, particularly for our African American students, reading scores by third grade, and then suspension rates and referrals to special education, we identify, and also, graduation rates, we identified that there's a trend that crosses all of those domains, and that is that for our African American students, they experience disproportionate rates of suspension, referral, and also incarceration. And so we believe that this particular group is not receiving an equitable education in comparison to other ethnic and racial groups in the district. And so we have dedicated and organized our services to bring equity for all students in OUSD. Well, there are several consequences that are significant in terms of academic achievement for students that are suspended multiple times. One of the most important is that they're out of the classroom during that time. And when we look at our suspension data, we see that suspensions beget suspensions. So the old adage that you suspend a student, they go home, the parents reinforce what the school rules are. They come back the next day prepared to behave according to the school rules. If that is going to work, it'll work on the first or second time. But what we see is that if it hasn't worked on the first or second time, what generally happens with students who receive multiple suspensions is that they receive additional suspensions. And the result is, one, that they're out of school, but second, that they begin to become disengaged with the school setting, and as do the parents. They begin to feel that there is a bias against them, at times a racial bias, and they begin to disengage with and actually become disenchanted with education in general. And this is caused by being pushed out of the classroom repeatedly for behaviors that may be actually adaptive within a community setting. So in OUSD, we've looked very carefully at best practices, national best practices for reducing racially disproportionate suspensions. And we've identified a couple of strategies that appear to be particularly advantageous, particularly for African American students. One of them is restorative justice. And restorative justice is a paradigm shift that changes our approach to discipline from identifying what rule was broken and what punishment should be given to what harm was caused and what reparation can we support the student to make so that they actually are more engaged in school after an incident than they would be by being pushed out. So restorative justice is one, and the other one that we've embraced is positive behavioral intervention and support, otherwise known as PBIS. And PBIS is designed to bring equity in terms of behavioral expectations and supports for all students school-wide, so that in Miss A's classroom, she tolerates you having a hat on, but Mr. B sends you to the office for wearing a hat. With PBIS, there are agreed upon behavioral expectations that cross all the domains in the school, and that the students participate in setting, so that there's buy-in from students, and then there's positive reinforcement and incentives for engaging in and following those behavioral expectations. So the shift is away from punishing students for not behaving properly according to our unstated expectations to reinforcing students for meeting our expectations, and when they can't, providing additional support to them as opposed to punishment.